published over 20 years, with each entry's title identifying the Madison of that moment. The Virginia Revolutionist, the Nationalist, Father of the Constitution, and so on. More recently, Noah Feldman took this approach to its logical conclusion by naming his biography The 3 Lives of James Madison, Genius, Partisan, President, implying that Madison somehow transitioned from embodying one role to another over the decades. Nearly 200 years since his death, it seems that Madison remains a difficult man to pin down. Better to think of him as 2, maybe 3 different men. But Madison was, of course, a single person, a brilliant and deep thinker who made careful arguments about what Republican government should look like. The facts of his life have been well told, by these and many other books, dating back to William Cable Reeves's History of the Life and Times of James Madison, the first volume of which was published before the Civil War. Yet the story still feels somehow incomplete, like pieces of a puzzle that have not been put together. To create a full portrait of Madison, we must connect his constitutional theory to his career in government, looking carefully at his life in the public realm to find the continuities between the theory and practice of politics. When we do, we find a man uniquely committed to the potential for well-ordered Republican politics to solve the essential problem of government. Philosophers, since the very beginning of Western civilization, have been confounded by a riddle embedded deep within human nature. People cannot create justice among themselves spontaneously. We are too selfish to place the needs of our neighbors or the community ahead of our own desires. This is the primary task of the state, to act as a neutral third party to settle our disputes and promote our common interests, because we cannot do so on our own. The problem is that government is also made up of people, and so it, likewise, has a tendency toward corruption, pursuing the interests of the leaders rather than the people at large. The ancient Greeks, like Aristotle, were aware of this problem, as were historians and philosophers from the Roman era, like Polybius and Cicero. During the Renaissance, it was on the mind of Machiavelli, and in the Enlightenment, it was a central concern for intellectuals such as Montesquieu and David Hume. By the time Madison reached adulthood in the 1770s, the general consensus was that there were 2 forms of government capable of addressing this essential problem. The first was a small republic, where the citizens alone would rule. In a smaller polity, like the city-states of Venice and Florence, the people would have generally homogeneous interests, minimizing the scope of political conflict, and they could keep a careful eye on their leaders, reducing the chance for corruption. So long as the people possessed a basic level of virtue, such a government could be sustained. For governments ruling over larger territories and more diverse peoples, the solution was to blend economic classes together in shared governance, balancing the rule of a monarch, the land-owning few, and the people at large. Great Britain, for instance, was praised by Montesquieu as a successful commonwealth for having established Parliament as a partner in government with the monarch. But neither of these solutions would work in the United States in 1787. Obviously, there could be no mixed system. The colonists had overthrown the British king a decade earlier and had no interest in establishing a new one, nor, for that matter, did the country have a class of nobility. The 13 states seemed compact and homogeneous enough to function as small republics, and the constitutions they drafted after declaring independence were pristinely democratic by the standards of the age. Yet the states, gathered loosely under the Articles of Confederation, behaved atrociously in the early years of the country, consistently undercutting the national interest and mistreating their own citizens. It seemed to some as though the American experiment in self-government might have been a mistake. Perhaps the people would prove unable to rule themselves after all. Madison had been acutely aware of these problems since his mid-20s.